Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate you taking a few moments. If you want to follow along, we will be in Genesis chapter number 25, beginning in verse 11. And I am not going to read all of this other than the first line. These are the generations of Ishmael. And so we are going to get a little genealogical passage. One thing I will point out to you here is many times when you see something like this, where you see verse 11, after the death of Abraham, God blessed Isaac his son. Isaac settled at Beth-el-roi. Then we see the generations of Ishmael. Many times, generally speaking, when you see these little generational family tree type passages, you are about to see a change in the story, see a new movement, a new chapter, if you will. And from this point, we're going to have these couple of verses that tell us about Ishmael and his descendants, and then we're pretty much done with him. That this will pretty much be the end of our discussion of Ishmael. In fact, in this passage, he's going to die. But pretty much his descendants, we're pretty much done with Ishmael and his family, and we'll begin this new movement dealing with Isaac. But what we do see here, this is an important section nonetheless, because it does show us that God did honor his promise to Abraham, that he would bless both of his sons, both Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac's sons Isaac is kind of mentioned in passing here. God blessed Isaac, because beginning in verse 19, we're going to dig into Isaac. But this just then tells us about how God blesses Ishmael. And he gives him, again, Ishmael ends up being the father of a great nation. He has 12 sons. They all become rulers or sheiks in areas, towns, villages, cities, whatever. And then eventually we read that Ishmael does pass away. And again, this passage just tells us that, just reminds us and teaches us that even in spite of our failures and our bad decisions, that God still honors his promise, that he still does his work. Again, I mentioned this sometime in the past, that we often read two different kinds of statements from God. God sometimes says, if my people will do so and so, then I will do so and so. Well, those are conditional. On other occasions, like the promise to Abraham, he says to Abraham, I will make of you a great nation. There is no if about it. And so even though Abraham made some bad decisions, even though he strayed, God still honored his promise. What a great comfort to us today that the promises of God, for example, he doesn't, his promise to save us, his promise to return for us are not conditional. He is coming again. He said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. Not I'm going to prepare a place for you if you do, but he says, I'm going. There are some promises that God makes that are not conditional, and we can take those to the bank. Those are done. They're as good as in concrete. And so this passage just again shows us one final time through the chain of Ishmael that God's promise to Abraham was valid and was honored. And so that as you go about your day to day, just be encouraged to know that our God is a promise-keeping God, that he honors his word. That's unusual in our culture, but God always honors his promises. You remember that today. Have a great day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.